Some of my best friends are people who I've literally seen in person 3 times, which is crazy to think about. But through like our online Velocidrone racing and just how fun and community orientated racing events are, you just become friends with these people so quickly.
In this third episode of the FPV podcast, I'm joined by member and organizer of New Zealand's biggest FPV racing club, Red Zone Racing. We take a look at the behind the scenes of organizing a national race event, cover Red Zone Racing's very unique origin story, and explain why you should look at joining a club, even if racing isn't for you. Thank you for coming on today, Seth. Really do appreciate it. Can you tell the audience who you are and what you do within the FPV space?
So I'm Seth Moore, also known as Crypto, fly FPV drones, as most people on this podcast would have done. And yeah, I do a lot of racing, I do a lot of filming, and a lot of everything really.
Cool. And you're also involved in Red Zone Racing Club, if I'm correct there.
Yeah. So as you can see from the lovely shirt, get it in here. Red Zone Drone Racing. It's the club here in Christchurch for anything drone racing related. So anyone who lives in Christchurch, anyone who lives in Canterbury, anywhere around there can come. Even people from Wellington, when they're down in town for whatever reason, they can come along and race, fly. We do weekly races in the summer. So every Wednesday night this year, we had a race. And obviously that's just stopped because of daylight savings. So we lose an hour, which basically makes it pointless to race. So, but during the summer, it's a 5 o'clock start. We all get down to the field, grab our gear, grab our batteries, charge up, fly from sort of 5 to usually 8:30, 9ish until it gets dark, really. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a real sort of short window, so everyone's sort of on their A game, getting into it quick, and you can punch through quite a few rounds. Probably get done with like good 8 to 10 batteries on a good night. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, you guys have got a really cool setup as well, and I do want to touch on that a little bit later in the podcast. Because I was very surprised when I saw that for the first time. But before we get too deep into that, can you talk me through how and when you started flying FPV drones?
So I started, God, what's it now? 2023. So probably, I think it was end of 2016, start of 2017. So I started off as most people did. I went on Banggood was the website at the time. Got a good old, I think it was the King Kong 210 GT. It's actually hanging up in front of me right now. I've still got it.
Let's go.
And yeah, I think it was a couple $100. Came with the Fly Sky radio and one battery. And then I didn't actually have goggles to start off with, so I brought a analog video receiver. It had like the red, the white, and the yellow outputs, and I plugged that into my TV. And from there, I was able to fly using the TV as my monitor because I couldn't afford goggles at the time. Because I was, God, how old would I have been? Not old, like 12, 13. Yeah, so it was an interesting setup, a lot of delay, and it was very tough to fly with, but I made it work. So yeah, that was quite an interesting way to start. And yeah, that quad really did me good. I got a lot of flights out of that. It took a beating, and no, it's still here with us today, which is quite symbolic.
Did you get another battery for it?
I didn't for that drone. I brought another drone before I got. Oh, well, actually, linking back up to Red Zone Drone Racing. When I first went down to the club, I got given about 8 batteries, as well as a whole bunch of props. So that's where my first set of batteries came from. I didn't buy them. I was given them.
Solid. That's the way to start. That's the way to start. What caused you to get into to buying that first drone off Banggood?
So we originally had a Phantom 2. I think it was our first ever drone. And prior to that, you'd have the like Toy World little helicopters and things like that, which were a lot of fun, don't get me wrong, but nothing compared to FPV, obviously. So yeah, we had a Phantom 2 and we flew that a fair bit, and just nothing crazy, just for fun really, no filming or anything. And from there, I saw it was Sharpoo's video where he's in the abandoned building, the one that quite a few people have seen. And I saw that and I was like, okay, that's awesome. I've got to get it to one of those. So I knew I didn't want to go straight into FPV because obviously that was quite a big step at the time. So I got a little cheapy like Kmarty kind of quad and started learning through that. So it was still not acro, not FPV, but yeah, I could fly that around, and I got really good at that. And then my parents were like, "Okay, sweet, you can get an FPV now," and I was like, "Yes, thank God." So got the old King Kong, and yeah, flew that for a while, and just nothing crazy. Didn't get too far into it. It was sort of just like a every month or so I'd pull it out of the box and take it for a couple flights, and just fun really. Like didn't try to jump into it too quick.
That's cool. That's cool. So you were saying before you got your first set of batteries from Red Zone Racing. So at what point in time was it then that you went into racing and actually got into the racing scene?
I The reason I went to Red Zone is because my drone broke. So I had broken it. I tried to fix it and I couldn't. So it was their first ever beginner day, and I saw it. My mum sent me the link on Facebook, and it was like Red Zone Drone Racing beginner day. Come down at this time, and you can just see what it's about, get some help. Everyone else is going to fly and just have a good time, really. So I took it down there, and I gave it to one of the guys, and he took it away for a week, brought it back, and I had like a whole bunch of batteries, whole bunch of props. He'd changed. I think it was the VTX had broken, so I put a brand new one of them in it, and just like kidded me out. And then I tried to pay him, and he just wouldn't give me anything for it. So it was an awesome experience.
That sounds like the community. Yeah, that
Oh,
definitely is the sort of
definitely.
vibe. The whole
Yeah.
you don't owe me anything, and I
No.
always sort of try and say, like, if you got any questions about anything, just find someone, like find the community that races, find the club or whatever. And that's really cool to hear.
100%.
That's exactly what you did to fix your drone at first. That's pretty crack up.
Yeah, and there's so many people who will be like, "Oh, I'm not into racing, so why would I want to go to Red Zone Drone Racing?" And racing, yes, that's all we do at the club, really. But all of us that are there fly FPV, so we're all going to have. I think about 90% of us also have a freestyle quad. I think about 15% of us also have like planes and wings and boats and stuff like that. So it's yes, the Facebook group and the land is for racing, but everyone there does other stuff as well. So by all means, come down, bring your plane. People will want to chase it. People will want to talk to you, and you can get advice and stuff like that on anything really. All racing clubs, I think I can speak on behalf, is saying they would like love to have as many people down there as possible. I don't think there's any racing club turning people away because there's too many people there or anything.
Yeah, exactly. Fully on the same page with you there. So you did mention to me earlier before we actually started this podcast that Red Zone Racing has got a bit of an interesting story, like the origins of it. So I'm keen to know, how did it all come to fruition?
So obviously, for those of you who aren't from New Zealand and from Christchurch, you may not know, but red zone drone racing, the word red zone actually comes from the land that we race in. So during the 2011 Christchurch earthquakes, a whole bunch of houses had to be demolished due to the land they were on becoming unusable. So along the banks of the Avon River, which runs through the middle of Christchurch, there was a lot of houses built in and around that area, and it was land that had been drained to allow for building to happen. So the earthquake happened. A lot of sediment and liquefaction came up and basically made the land unusable for anything. So these days, it's a big green space. You can see it clearly if you look on Google Maps over Christchurch. Huge, big area because yeah, you can't do anything else with the land. So it's quite cool because people's trees and stuff they had in their backyard have all grown up, and no houses, foundations, nothing remain. It's just grass and trees. So and that was at the perfect time when people started getting into FPV. So sort of end of kind of 2013, 2014ish is when it was kind of converted into a public space park. And if you look at times of when FPV was growing, that was one of the big sort of first uprises in popularity. So, a group of Christchurch people came together and they said, "We're going to race some FPV drones. We need a spot." So, obviously, the red zone, it's a pretty derelict kind of area. Not many people hanging around. Perfect kind of spot. Lots of trees, places to race around. So, that the spot was determined, and it was quite cool because at that point we had no sort of set home location, and the red zone was so big that people could just move around. Um, but then we obviously had the problem of no sort of home base station type thing. So one of the guys, Phil, he had a bus. So he converted his bus into a setup to fly drones out of. So he had like big batteries for charging off of. He had tables and stuff in there that we could hang out on. And yeah, he carried all the gates around. And basically, this bus kind of became like this moving sort of drone hub, which is pretty funny. And yeah, it had his logo on the back of it. I'll flick you a photo of it, but it was an awesome setup. And every weekend they'd head out to the red zone with the bus and pull all the gates out of it and just have a blast. Really, it was pretty interesting. A lot different to what you sort of see these days, but yeah, pretty crazy.
That's actually insanely cool. A bus of all things.
It's
That's not what I expected you to say.
oh no, it was really awesome. Yeah, he's still got the bus as well.
Oh, even better, even better.
Yeah,
So, at what point then did it become into what it is today more so? And also, do you want to explain what the sort of setup
yeah,
consists of today?
yeah. So these days we have a 20-foot shipping container on a spot of land. I think it's 7 sections, sort of converted into one. So we have some trees in the center, and then trees lining the outside. And yeah, it used to be 7 houses in the area. So in our 20-foot container, we have our timing system. So we have a computer, we have all our gate storage, we have spots for charging, we have power permanently set up on the site. So no need for generators or anything like that. You could plug in and get all your batteries and gear charged up that way. And yeah, it's all the little things really that take up a lot of space. It's all the tables, the chairs, the starting blocks, the hammers. But it's awesome. It's good to have a spot like that where you can store all that stuff, because um, having a setup where you have to bring it all in the back of your car still works 100%, but it's tricky. Yeah, tricky for sure, because you look at it on paper, it's like, oh sweet, I need drone, I need controller, and I need goggles, and I'll race. But yeah, it's the little things that take up a lot of space. So having the container there on site is really nice, because we can keep all our stuff there, which is pretty awesome.
No, it's very cool, and that was something that surprised me when I got to your guys' site for the first time. I was like, "Yo, this is like a full proper setup," and I don't know, that blew me away. Like, how long's the container been there for now? And like, because obviously you had the bus, so at what point did you go from bus to the container, and what actually helped make the jump from the bus to a container?
Yeah, so the bus started getting a bit rattly. It'd done a few too many trips, and we sort of wanted more of like a home location. So a company called Lives, I think it's called Life in Vacant Spaces, is what it stands for, and they acquired a section of the red zone from the council and basically gave it out to non-profits like us to use and make good use of. So surrounding our area, there's a pump track for bikes. There's a dog place where dog people can come meet up and have coffees and stuff like that. There's tons of cool little there's frisbee golf. There's art installations, really cool little spaces. And yeah, we managed to get one of those sections, and then through some grants, we got the container and our timing system and computer and stuff like that. So that got put onto the section. I think it was early 2019, I think it must have been. Yeah. So we've been there coming up 4 years, which is pretty crazy. And yeah, no, it's been a really cool spot. Some people will say, "Oh, you sort of get sick of a spot," and we definitely do sometimes find ourselves going, "Okay, how could we make a new track, for example?" Um, but yeah, we make it work, and it's a really cool location. And the good thing about the container is, if we ever did have to move, so say our lease had to get quickly removed or something like that, or there was flooding or whatever happened, we could move the container. We could just pay for it to get picked up with a truck and take it to anywhere we want. And we've even talked about, for big events like NZO, taking the container to like a stadium or something, or a different site to host it, which it sounds expensive on paper, but it's by the time you would take all the gear there and move it all around and buy new stuff, it definitely makes sense. So it's a it's a really cool setup for sure. And the bus was definitely awesome. But the container has peaked as being our best setup so far for sure.
That's really cool to hear about the thought of actually moving the container, especially for like a big event, because it would be, I mean, I definitely know, I can definitely understand what you're saying when you're talking about, the same place is going to get very much so a little bit rinse and repeated for you guys, especially racing there every single week. For me, it was a completely new experience. I was like amazed by the fact that this, space even exists. But I guess for you guys to go somewhere even completely new for a big event like NZO, that would be quite the experience. And it's also like really a simpler way to make that whole thing happen without, yeah, like you said, shifting a whole bunch of crap into cars and then, moving over there and figuring out, oh, we need this over there, we don't have that. So that's cool. You have pretty much like a big portable setup for an entire club that you can just pick up and take away somewhere. That's rad.
Yeah, it definitely would be portable. We haven't moved it yet, but if we ever had to, I don't think it would be too hard. It's probably half a day's work, and it's ready to be picked up and taken wherever you want.
Yeah, hell yeah. So if there's somebody that's brand new that's, in the FPV space, much like probably yourself, not into racing or, like I'm talking at first here, has no idea about racing or whatever, what do they expect? Well, what should they expect when they come to your guys' club? Day, what's a day in the life like there?
Yeah, so we probably get, I'd say, 1 to 2 new people every month come up, and yeah, it's a really awesome thing for us who have been in it for a long time to see that it's still growing. There's still new people coming into it, and I think most people are on the same page where they say it's we're all going to be inviting when you come up. I know some people think that they're going to get their head bitten off because they're flying some Chinese piece of crap that everyone's not going to like. But you come along, there's going to be people immediately wanting to give you props or tune up your quad for you or seriously do anything. So I think the best place for people is to literally just look at where you are, find your nearest club. Most people have a Facebook group. I think is the most popular one, or a Discord or something like that. So join that and say, hey, when's your next meeting? I'd love to come down for a look. I've got a drone, or I haven't got a drone, or I'm looking at this drone online. What do you guys think of it? Something like that. I respond for probably like, I don't know, 5 comments or something like that every week where people are like, oh, I'm looking at this. What do you think? And I'm like, yeah, it's good. You could try this, or you could do it this way. And yeah, it's there's even people at our club. I'll give Finn a shout out. Hi Finn, if you're watching. Um, he's actually built a whole drone for new people to come along and use, and he's also got his old QX7 that he loans out to new people to try on a simulator. So I think it's actually out online at the moment to a couple people. And yeah, basically they come down and say, I haven't got a drone yet, but I'm keen to give it a go. So Finn's like, take my controller, and when you're good enough to fly the sim, then come back and you can fly this drone. So yeah, there's always going to be people that are going to want to give you a hand, help you, get you into it because they want to see it keep going. They don't want to see their hobby die out when they eventually have to leave or something like that. So yeah, no, it's everyone's going to be inclusive for sure. And if there's not inclusive people, then just find a new place. Really, you don't want to fly with non-inclusive people anyway.
No, and this is exactly like this is literally experience. Like this is the same experience that I had. I came along to NZO for the first time, having never gone to any club, never even thought about coming along to a race event. And I mean, you yourself are very welcoming. And then when I get there, I've got DJI, which is like I was like, oh holy crap, I'm gonna get
Yeah,
shat on by
you
everybody for
rinse.
having DJI. Like they're gonna hate me. And then I come along and you're just like, yeah, bro, now's your time to fly. Go fly. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh crap. And I mean, we know how that went. Not so great, but the point of coming along, I definitely wasn't prepared the um for the actual race or anything, and that's why I didn't race. But I'm now obviously very much so getting into the racing scene. I've built my first drone now. Like this has all come from starting with going to NZO and starting in the community, and like that's definitely a massive thank you to Red Zone Racing and yourself as well, because I'm genuinely like I wouldn't have been in this racing scene had you guys not been like as welcoming and as like genuinely dope people as you are. So that's like a big thing that I don't know, I try and preach that a lot, because it's like these people won't bite, like, and then here we are having a chat on podcasts, and I've messaged everyone about like when I'm building, I got a million questions, I don't know what I'm talking about. And yeah, so that's a really exciting part um of the community and the club.
Yeah, it's crazy the communities that are associated with it for sure. Because with NZO, the the people that come to it, we only get to see once a year, maybe twice a year if they come to our regional or something like that. But some of my best friends are people who I've literally seen in person 3 times in my entire life, and I would say about half of my top 10 friends I've literally only ever seen in person 3 times, which is crazy to think about. But through like our online Velocidrone racing and just how fun and community orientated racing events are, you just become friends with these people so quickly. And it makes, I almost look forward to seeing the people more than I do the racing when it comes to an event like that, which is it's a backwards way to think about it, but it's awesome for sure.
I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Like, I genuinely think it's one of the most powerful but like fun parts of the hobby is seeing like-minded people having good chats. It doesn't even have to be FPV related, but just the fact that you guys are minded, you just click like this, and you're aware of whatever conversation about whatever damn topic in life. So, yeah, very very cool. What do you actually do within Red Zone Racing? Because from my understanding, you're an organizer and also a main part of the club. So what do you do within the club?
Yeah, so our main organizer is Nathan, Speed Demon. He's sort of the head of it all, and I'm second in charge really. So I do quite a lot of the social media stuff, a lot of the posts for that. I do a lot of organizing behind the scenes. So I organize the whole regional we had this year. Um, I'm also the accountant. So I do all the accounting. I make sure people pay their fees. I sort out what money needs to go where. And that's quite a big part of it behind the scenes, because obviously when people come, they pay their $6 race fee and it sort of disappears for them. But for us, we got to kind of divvy that money up to whether we buy some new gates this season, buy some conduit. It's the little things like hammers and stuff like that, which we have to put money towards and bank for, which is quite a crucial part of the club. So I manage a fair bit of that. And yeah, no, it's a cool thing to be a part of, just to kind of be one of the organizers and help sort of setting all the things up and running the show really. So if there's if there's a weather decision that needs to be made, or we need to put a post up about tonight's racing, it's either me or Nathan who are behind it doing it there. And there's hundreds, well, not hundreds, there's tons of people behind us that are backing us up and giving us hands with everything. So it's a real communal effort, but obviously you got to have some people that kind of run the show and pull the effort. So yeah, it's a cool thing to be a part of.
Yeah, I'm curious to know why you actually do this. Like, what's
Mm,
your motives? What's your reasoning behind taking on the responsibility and running, or being the co-runner or whatever of such
yeah.
major parts of the club?
Well, I've been a part of the club for quite a few years now, probably five-ish years. So sort of doing those things and helping the club is kind of my way of giving back almost. It's you obviously have to have people that do that so the club keeps running. It's a non-profit, so you got to have people that sort of step up and run things like that. And it's nice to have some power over everything. It's nice to be able to make choices on things that we buy and stuff like that, because it is quite cool with being non-profit. We can decide, okay, we've got this money, we've got to spend it on something, so we got to decide what we buy, or got to decide how the event runs, which is, it's awesome to be behind the scenes for sure. It's obviously adds a lot of stress and pressure, and sometimes like, oh, I just want to show up to an event and race, but there's tons of events that you can show up to and just be a part of, even for me. So it's nice to be able to give back and do some organizing every now and again for sure.
That's right. Yeah. So talking about organizing and planning, what was it like planning out the New Zealand Opens? Because that's a national event that even people from Australia came to, and it's a big thing. So what goes into the behind the scenes of that?
Yeah, it's a lot of little things really. So it's all the got to hire all the chairs, hire all the tables, and it's all good hiring it. But now you've hired it, so now you got to go pick it up somehow and get it there, and got to sort out power for all the charging, and it was a big effort. So there was Jackson, Kevin, and Nathan and myself were the four organizers this year. So we sort of all came together and each took a part of it. So Jackson and Kevin were kind of the main track designers. So we designed the track on Velocidrone, and it was a really good way to sort of fly it without having to set it up and everything, because we didn't actually have all the gear to set up the track until Kevin came down, because half the gear is Wellington's gear. So half the gates belong to Wellington. We didn't have enough gates down here in Christchurch to set up the NZO track this year. So that was an interesting dynamic, and it was tough because we couldn't transport the conduit for the gates down here, so we had to get Kevin to bring the fabric down and then buy more conduit down here in Christchurch that we could transport over to the container, which was pretty interesting. But yeah, it's a lot of little things, and then you got the portaloo and stuff like that, all the food, the sausages, but it's a really awesome experience, and it's great to provide an event that people go, oh, that was an awesome event. That was something I really enjoyed. As you were saying, it's that's the sort of feedback we love, and that's what sort of keeps us doing it, keeps it coming back. And without us doing it, there wouldn't really be an event. Well, there definitely be people stepping up to run it, but they, yeah, it's it's a tough job for sure, but we got through it this year, and we've already started planning for 2024. So be there, people. Come to NZO 2024. It'll be awesome. I'm not giving you any hints yet, but may not be in Christchurch.
Oh, well, that sounds like a head to me. And well, like I said, definitely sound like a head. But no,
No, no, no, no, no.
no. I'm definitely going to be coming, and I'm actually going to be competing this year or next year. So I've
Great
made
to
that
hear.
decision. That's the goal. That's getting into it. But for someone who actually doesn't know what the New Zealand Opens is, or even what, because obviously this is a national event, but this can happen in other places around the world. So it's not necessarily just New Zealand Opens. It's a different. It's a type of race that happens within a specific country, right? So what is New Zealand Opens?
Yeah, so it's our big event for the year that sort of brings the whole country together. Really, there's each club will usually individually host their own champs series, so it's sort of rating people in the club, and it's usually a 1 day event. It's kind of just a more formal sort of little mini event type of thing. Usually not much more goes into it than just a regular race day, but it's still quite a cool way to kind of go, okay, this is our club's event for the year, and NZO is kind of a combination of that, where all the people in New Zealand will come, they'll meet in one place, and they'll fly to sort of determine who's the best, really. And it's all really in the name. So it's called the New Zealand Open. So open kind of shows really that it's open to anyone. It's not the New Zealand Grand Prix, the New Zealand best of the best. It's the New Zealand Open. It's anyone who wants to come can fly and is more than welcome to come. Like last year we had one of the guys who didn't even complete 2 laps until the third day. So it's really is open to anyone who wants to come along, and you're never going to have people kicking you off the track for taking too long or making mistakes. It's an inclusive environment that allows people to come and experience a cool big format of racing, because it is 3 days. So we have our Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Friday is our practice, and sometimes Friday will also be qualifying depending on weather, but usually we aim to just have one full day of practice, and then Saturday, full day of qualifying always. And Sunday is into mains. So it's a cool thing, because it with mains formatting, it's often hard to run a mains format without enough people. So the only time we'll ever run a big Chase the Ace main format like that is at NZO. So it's a cool new kind of experience that a lot of people won't ever get unless they go to a big event like that. And it's complex, definitely. You look at it on a piece of paper and you're like, okay, if I win this race, I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to drop down into here, and then bump up here. So it's confusing, but it's really awesome once you sort of integrate yourself into it, because it is so strategic that you're like, okay, I am going to lose this race, so I drop down into a lower main so that I can win that main and bump up. But it's all strategy, and it definitely doesn't pay off sometimes, but it can 100% pay off and be very, very rewarding.
Yeah, I remember literally chatting to you about this whilst we were there, and you're like talking me through about the way that things, like about how, you know, you might lose this race so you can go and win like another race and it will move you up in that section. It was a wild time, especially for someone
Yeah,
who had never even raced like a general standard weekly race or whatever. It was super, super different for me. And I was definitely confused probably until about midway through day 3 on how any of the tier systems was working. But I think I've kind of wrapped my head around it. But yeah, it
yeah.
must be pretty
I
cool.
can't even get my head around it unless I'm in it racing at the same time. I look at it on a piece of paper and I'm so lost. But once you're sort of a part of it, you sort of wrap your head around it enough to be able to figure it out.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's cool. And it's also cool the fact that it only happens once a year. So it's just as
Yeah.
exciting for you guys organizing it as it is for literally everybody else who's taking part in it and actually becoming
Oh,
into
100%.
it. Yeah.
Definitely.
I got an interesting question here on the thought of if someone is actually looking at kicking off their own community because they don't actually have one in their town or nearby to them, what's sort of something that they should look into doing, like to get themselves out there, start their club up, and sort of, I don't know, get themselves into the world, invite people into FPV.
Yeah, so I think the best way is obviously just to sort of first see if there is a community, because you don't want to go setting up a club if you could drive 10 more minutes down the road and there is someone who's got a club already set up. So it's definitely a quick like hour research saying, okay, I'm in this area, drone racing in this area, FPV this place kind of thing, to sort of figure out if there's people there. If there's not, which in a lot of cases there isn't people anywhere around who've got something set up, just maybe find the nearest place. So for example, I'll use a New Zealand example here, but for your overseas people, you can interpret this however you want. If you're in Ashburton, ask the people in Christchurch if there's anyone in Ashburton who also flies FPV, and a lot of the time people will say, "Oh yeah, I'm here, I'm in this area." So then from there you can say, "Okay, I've got 5 people who are also in the same area as me, and I've found those people by contacting the sort of big mothership kind of city nearby us." And from there, you can branch off and go to those 5 people. Hey, do you want to all chuck in some money? We can buy some gates. We can set up a little spot. I know this park that we can fly at. Let's meet here on Saturday. And let's fly. Let's race. Let's freestyle. Let's do whatever. Um, so it's that would definitely be my advice, to sort of to find if your city hasn't got a club, find a big city nearby you, ask if there's any people in your city, and then get their names, get their numbers, meet up with them, ask them their thoughts, and yeah, just initiate it. Don't be scared to be the person who sets it up. Don't be scared to be a leader, because you're always going to have those people right behind you, backing you up, giving you help with money and setting up some gates and stuff like that. And then with stuff like that, you can get multi-GP gates made up. And then you can set up a multi-GP chapter. You can make a Facebook group. You can make a Discord group chat, and then yeah, just grow. Just add people, get people into it. Bring along family, friends that know how to have a drone, have a DJI drone or something like that. Get them into it, and then they might buy one. Their friend might buy one, and just sort of really nurture it, grow it from there. Is probably my advice for sure.
That's super valuable because when I was trying to just even experience the FPV like hobby, I was of the understanding of there's absolutely no communities around. I'd looked up, you know, FPV, you know, whatever I'd searched up, and I couldn't seem to find anything like. But I'd never thought about looking for racing, and I definitely never thought about looking at a a larger area, a larger city to actually reach out into. So that's really valuable, because that was a difficult place to be in, thinking there's no one around. And since that
Mm.
point now, since having met up with you guys over in Christchurch, and for people listening, I am 5.5 hours away from Christchurch. So it's not a super close city that's just across, like, from me. It's 5.5 hour drive. It's a while away. But from that meetup, I actually then got in touch with some people through another Facebook group who live in Wanaka, where I live, and now I consistently fly with them. We go out like once or twice a week. We set up the gates, and we are starting our own club at some point, but we're probably going to launch that in summer, so that's sort of the time to go into it. But at the moment, it's just like, it's really cool. I've had a whole bunch of different people start to find also through YouTube and Instagram. They reach out and they're like, hey, are you on Wanaka? It's like, yeah, I'm in Wanaka. Or like, they're like, oh, I'm over in Cromwell, which is a 45-minute drive, which in terms of South Island for New Zealand is not very far
That's
away.
pretty good.
45 minutes is pretty damn good. So it's been a really cool experience also now creating like another little mini hub in Wanaka where there was once nothing. But that all stemmed from going to the main. So that's super valuable. And I also want to touch on, you mentioned multi-GP, and what is multi-GP? Can you explain through what exactly that is?
Oh God, I don't know if I
You
can.
don't have to get technical on it, but it's an organization as such, right?
Yeah, it's sort of it's an organization. It's sort of a benchmark for people who want to fly, who want to race. It's a starting point for like specific gate sizing. They release multi GP tracks that you can set up and qualify on to get into certain events. And it's sort of just like a mothership for racing, really. In New Zealand, it's not represented too much, but places like America and Australia, there's a lot of places who will set up multi GP tracks and then from there race them. You can set their times and compete in multi GP events, which is it's pretty cool. It's a cool little format for sure.
Cool. So it's essentially the industry standard in a sense, and that's sort of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
basis of what people would be setting their race gates up with, or like the sizing of the race
definitely.
gates and whatnot. Okay, that's pretty cool. Well, hey, I do appreciate you coming on today. Where are people able to connect with both yourself and also the Red Zone Race Group?
Sweet, yeah. So if you're in the Christchurch area or even New Zealand, go to Facebook, just search up Red Zone Drone Racing. We have a page and we have a group, so you can either look on the page, we post all our updates on there, or if you're a bit more keen, you can join our group and get more sort of in-depth updates on when we're flying, where we're flying. Myself personally, you can find my Instagram, sethmore.mp4. Give me a follow. I do racing, I do filming stuff. I love drones, fly drones almost every weekend. So if you're into drones, check me out. Evan, hit me up. I want a 523 sponsorship. So you know where to contact me now. Um, but yeah, no, it's an awesome sport, and I just definitely like to recommend anyone give it a go. Uh, find a club, set up a club. Don't be worried to make your club if you set one up like a full fancy club. Just get together 5 mates. Just set something up. You don't have to have like a company. You don't have to set up anything crazy like that. Just create a group chat, create a Facebook group. Something. Just make it chill. You don't want to make it too serious because if it's too serious, no one's going to enjoy it. So have fun is the most important thing. Enjoy it, and yeah, no, get out there, keep flying.
Dude, absolute words of wisdom. Fantastic gold right there. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.